You launched personal attacks on multiple members of the Senate. You repeatedly referred to Senator Mitch McConnell as, quote, cocaine Mitch. You also retweeted a post which accused him of, quote, embodying everything that's wrong with politics.
What started as questions about old tweets quickly turned into a much bigger debate over whether a lifetime judicial nominee could be trusted with the federal bench. Senator Dick Durbin confronted the nominee over posts attacking Republican senators, promoting January 6 conspiracy theories, and questioning law enforcement. As she apologized, Durbin made it clear that he wasn't convinced. Here's what happened.
Ms. Westercamp, throughout your prolific, inflammatory social media career, you launched personal attacks on multiple members of the Senate. You repeatedly referred to Senator Mitch McConnell as, quote, cocaine Mitch. You also retweeted a post which accused him of, quote, embodying everything that's wrong with politics. You once told Senator Graham that he is, quote, true to no one but your own self-preservation. You accused Senator Collins of prioritizing her own personal political power over the president's priorities. Would you like to apologize to those senators and others which you've referred to in your social media today?
Yes, Senator. And if I may, any comments I made were in my personal capacity as a private citizen, but in hindsight, I think that using Twitter is not the right platform, especially retweets from someone I don't know regarding political opinions, controversial topics, or even characterizations of people. And so I do sincerely apologize for those posts. And if confirmed, Senator, I would faithfully uphold the judicial canons, which include avoiding any appearance of impropriety, and that would include social media. And I've also seriously considered Vice Ranking Member Durbin just completely deactivating Twitter.
Let me ask you about your tweets beyond personal references to members of the Senate. And I just focused on what you had to say about Republicans. You used social media to spread conspiracy theories as well regarding the attempted insurrection of the Capitol on January 6th, including, you said, that law enforcement was complicit in the violence. You appeared to agree with the tweet that stated the attack was, quote, orchestrated by members of the Senate and members of the Capitol Police. And you have elevated a claim that those storming the House chamber were, quote, Antifa in disguise. In addition, you downplayed the violence of the day, including assaults on law enforcement, by retweeting and posting, quote, we're all supposed to be sending thoughts and prayers to traumatized members of Congress whose workday was interrupted for a couple of hours. Ms. Westercamp, are you willing to denounce here and now the violence perpetrated on January 6th in this Capitol building?
Senator, I condemn all violence that occurred on January 6th. And in addition, I think for what you quoted, Senator, I think that is endemic of how it is not proper to use retweets from someone or from people I don't know regarding such a controversial topic.
Will you apologize to the law enforcement officers for spreading the conspiracy theory that they were somehow complicit in the violence of January 6th?
Senator, again, I think that gets to how retweeting posts from people I don't know on controversial topics I regret doing. And again, I condemn all of the violence that occurred on that day.
What we're trying to get to is whether you have the temperament for a lifetime appointment as a judge with extraordinary authority and power in that appointment. We don't know, as we vote and send off judges to do their duty, whether they're going to keep their word before us. We look at their background, we look at their values, and try to draw a conclusion as to whether they're stable and dependent, and whether or not they should have the authority and power for a lifetime on the federal bench. What would you like to say today about what you have put in your social media post in the past about events and about members of the Senate as to whether or not we should say that's an accurate reflection of your values?
Senator, I am a native Iowan, and I think that if you speak to any of my many colleagues and friends that are sitting behind me, that they would tell you that I live a life of integrity and credibility and I regret any of those retweets about what occurred on January 6th. And again, I do condemn all of the violence that happened on that day, and I, if I am confirmed, would...
Last question. If you're confirmed to the Court of International Trade and later decide to rule against the executive branch, this one or a future one, would executive branch officials be required to comply with your decision
Yes.
without exception?
Senator, yes, and there are appeal mechanisms, but otherwise any party appearing before the Court of International Trade, I would expect them to comply with any court order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Before Senator Kennedy, just a little commentary on what his questioning. We're here to assess your qualifications. You have extensive legal advocacy, and by all accounts, I think Ms. Westercamp has been diligent, capable attorney throughout her career. Politically charged statements by nominees or their organizations are unheard of in this committee. And I think that both sides of the aisle know that this has happened, whether we have Republican or Democrat presidents, Republican or Democrat nominees. My Democrat colleagues in those occasions did not object when President Biden's nominees like Vanita Gupta and Nancy Abado made inflammatory partisan statements, criticized members of this committee or were members of openly partisan organizations, and they supported Dale Ho, a nominee, even though he described himself as a quote-unquote wild-eyed liberal. Senator Kennedy, I'm going to go up to the Budget Committee for questions. Can you stay here for about 15 minutes?
Yes, sir. I
Thank you.
can.
Go with your questions.
Thank you. Does this mean I get extra time? All right.
One of the most revealing exchanges of the confirmation hearing came when Senator Dick Durbin questioned judicial nominee Whitney Hermendorfer Westercamp about years of controversial social media activity and whether those statements reflected the impartial judgment expected of a federal judge. Durbin began by focusing on her past comments directed at members of the Senate itself. He noted that she had referred to Senator Mitch McConnell as Cocaine Mitch, shared posts accusing him of representing everything wrong with politics, criticized Senator Lindsey Graham as someone loyal only to his own political survival, and accused Senator Susan Collins of putting her own political interests ahead of the country. Rather than defend those comments, Westercamp acknowledged that they were inappropriate. She apologized to the senators involved, explaining that the posts were made while she was a private citizen and admitting that social media, particularly reposting material from people she did not personally know, had been a mistake. She even said she had considered deleting her account entirely if confirmed to the federal bench. But Durbin made it clear that his concerns extended far beyond personal insults. He shifted to posts related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, pointing to social media activity in which she had amplified claims suggesting law enforcement officers or members of Congress were involved in orchestrating the violence. He also referenced posts repeating the conspiracy theory that those who stormed the Capitol were actually Antifa disguised as Trump supporters. Durbin argued that these were not simply political opinions but serious allegations that undermined public confidence in law enforcement and democratic institutions. When asked directly whether she condemned the violence of January 6, Westercamp answered yes without hesitation. She said she condemned all of the violence that occurred that day and again described her decision to repost controversial material as poor judgment. Durbin, however, pressed further. He asked whether she would apologize specifically to the Capitol police officers for helping spread conspiracy theories suggesting they had somehow participated in the attack. Instead of giving a direct apology to those officers, Westercamp again expressed regret over reposting material from unknown sources and repeated that she condemned the violence. That response appeared to leave Durbin unsatisfied. The Illinois senator explained that confirmation hearings are not simply about testing legal knowledge or academic credentials. They are an opportunity for the Senate to evaluate whether a nominee possesses the temperament, judgment, and integrity necessary for a lifetime appointment to the federal judiciary. Durbin emphasized that senators cannot predict how every judge will rule in future cases. Instead, they examine a nominee's past conduct and public record to determine whether that person can be trusted to apply the law fairly and independently. He questioned whether the social media record before the committee reflected the kind of impartiality expected from someone who could spend decades deciding cases affecting millions of Americans. Westercamp responded by describing herself as a person of integrity and credibility. She pointed to colleagues and friends seated behind her in the hearing room who, she said, could testify to her character. Once again, she expressed regret for the January 6 related posts and pledged that, if confirmed, she would faithfully follow the ethical rules governing federal judges. Durbin closed with one final question designed to test judicial independence. He asked whether, if confirmed to the Court of International Trade, she would expect executive branch officials, including officials serving under the current administration, to comply with her rulings, even if those decisions went against the government. Her answer was straightforward. She said yes. She explained that all parties appearing before the court should comply with judicial orders, while acknowledging that normal appellate procedures remain available when parties disagree with a ruling. Although her answer appeared to reassure the committee on that point, Durbin had already delivered his broader message. For him, the issue was not whether the nominee had apologized, the issue was whether years of inflammatory political rhetoric, conspiracy-related social media activity, and attacks on elected officials demonstrated the level of judgment required for one of the nation's most powerful and permanent public offices. The exchange underscored a larger debate that has become increasingly common during judicial confirmation hearings. Should controversial public statements made before nomination be viewed as youthful political expression, or do they provide meaningful insight into how a judge may exercise enormous authority once entrusted with a lifetime appointment? That question remained at the center of Durbin's examination, leaving the committee, and the public, to decide whether the nominee's explanations were enough to restore confidence in her impartiality.